A Little Yuletide Murder, Chapter 17. I had to wait for 2 hours for a bus back to Kaboot Cove and spent the time browsing quaint shops and enjoying a tuna salad sandwich in a pub that seemed to be a popular gathering spot for Salem's business community. I was virtually alone on the bus, for which I was grateful. I've always found traveling, whether on a plane, in an ocean liner, or even a bus, to be good thinking time. The problem was the bus ride was so short that I barely began to codify what I learned from Tom Skaggs when we pulled up to the small two-bay bus station in Kaboot Cove. It was 4:30, although the sun continued to shine, albeit with less intensity as it neared the horizon. The weather had turned colder, the sort of bone-chilling, dry cold that seems to occur only on clear winter days in Maine. Dimitri's cousin Nick was parked at the curb. I got in the back of his taxi and he drove me home. "How are things working out?" I asked as I signed the small check that would become part of my monthly bill for cab services. "Very good, ma'am," he said. "I like it here. This is a good place." "Kaboot Cove?" "Yes, it certainly is," I said, getting out of the taxi as he stood holding open the door. I reset the timers on my outdoor lights to go on earlier, and the one in front did as we stood in my driveway, illuminating the pretty wreath on my door. "Are you ready for Christmas?" I asked. "Oh, yes, but there is so much to do." "America is a busy place, especially when the holiday comes." "It certainly is," I said. "Thank you for the ride. Say hello to Dimitri." I brought in the mail, turned up the heat, which my frugal New England heritage has me turning down to the lowest possible level whenever I'm not there, and made a fire in the fireplace. I sat at the kitchen table and started going through my mail. Most of it consisted of bills, although there was an envelope with only my handwritten name on it. I opened it and read, "Mrs. Fletcher, I want very much to interview you about the Santa Claus murder. I'll make myself available any hour of the day or night. You name the time and place. Other people in town have been very cooperative all day, and I was hoping to meet up with you again. We're staying at Morton's boarding house. It was the only place we could find rooms in town. Please call me the minute you get this message. Roberta Brannison." She included Morton's phone number. I put the note aside. I was in no mood to talk to Mrs. Brennison or any other member of the press for that matter. The phone rang. "Hello? Jessica. Seth here." "Hello, Seth. I just came back from Salem." "Yes, I know. Tom Skaggs called. You'll have to fill me in on what transpired between you." "Well, he basically informed that." "Not on the phone, Jessica." "Free for dinner?" "Yes, although I prefer to have a quiet dinner alone, right here at the house." "As you wish." "Heard from the reporters?" "Only Miss Brennison, the reporter from Fox News." "I take it more have arrived." "Aye, aye, they certainly have." "You think the President of the United States was holding a summit meeting in Kaboot Cove?" "Got to hand it to Pascalia Hoy. She seems to have them all pretty much in hand. Knows how to deal with them, something I wouldn't want to do." I laughed. "They can be an aggressive lot, that's for certain." "By the way, Jessica, seems to me we ought to start picking the stories we'll be reading to the children at the festival." "You're right. Although I thought we should confer with Cynthia before making any decisions." "My thinking exactly." "Well, if I can't get you to agree to let me buy you dinner. I wish you a good evening. And the same to you, Steph. Please understand, I love to, but not tonight. Of course, but I do think we should hook up tomorrow. Say I'm at my office at 10. I don't have patience till 1. Fine. Put me in your appointment book. Although I wanted to settle down for the evening, contact myself with some snacks for dinner, and get back to writing Christmas cards and answering correspondence, I was too restless to accomplish any of that. I found myself pacing the house, the events of the past few days flooding my brain. So I did what I often do when faced with such mental confusion. I took out a yellow legal pad and pen, sat at my desk, and listed everything I'd learned to date. The victim, Roy Brent, successful farmer and beloved figure in town, found murdered in his barn a half mile from his house, wearing only shirt sleeves, killed sometime in the morning. Brent's wife Patricia away visiting her cousin Jane in Salem, Maine. Just occurs to me that Tom Skaggs and his Here to Help organization is located there too. Patricia said she took an early bus. The trip took 45 minutes and she returned on the 1 o'clock bus. Brent's son Robert, claimingly untouched by his father's death, claims Jake Walther threatened his father, knowing that bad blood between both Roy Brent and Jake Walther. Walther disliked by many people in town. Walther initially claims his brother-in-law Dennis was fixing a stone wall with him the morning of Brent's murder. Dennis confirmed that. Then Dennis changes his story and says Jake threatened him unless he provided that alibi and that he was not with Jake the morning of the murder. Question is, can Dennis be trusted in what he says? Jake's wife Mary seeks help for her husband. I bring attorney Joseph Turkle into picture. Looked like Drake would be released until county police determined that a footprint on the barn's dirt floor, missed by Mort Metzger, had a unique sole print matching boots owned by Walther. Walther now charged with Brent's murder. Jill Walther, Jake and Mary's daughter, pregnant in senior year, referred to a social agency in Salem by Seth Hazlett. Tom Skaggs confirms that a pregnant Jill Walther came to him and that he gave her names of 2 abortion clinics. Also says he counseled her on other options, including giving birth and keeping a baby, or putting it up for adoption. Jill Walther claims she was raped, but refuses to give the name the person. Who was it? Shortly after Jill's visit to Here to Help, Roy Brent makes a big financial contribution. What connections does the Brent family have with Jill's pregnancy? My next move. Comfort Jill Walther with my knowledge she become pregnant? To what end? I have no right knowing that information unless it bears directly upon murder. It should remain her business. Still, it could be a valuable piece of information. Possibility discuss it with Mort Metzger. No, if I do anything, it must be face to face with Jill. I no sooner written that last line when the phone rang. It was Roberta Branderson, the Fox reporter's news reporter. Glad I caught you, Mrs. Fletcher, she said brightly. I wish I could say the same. Instead I said, well, you have. I was gone for the day. Mind if I ask where? My my guffaw was involuntary. Of course I mind. Where I go is none of your concern. I just thought it might have to do with the Santa Claus murder. Mrs. Branderson, Santa Claus was not murdered in Cabot Cove. Mr. Roy Brent was a leading citizen. Frankly, I think trending upon the fact that he played Santa Claus at our yearly festival is distasteful. Hey, Mrs. Fletcher, don't jump on me. I'm just developing a story the way my bosses want me to. Well, maybe you should tell your bosses they're on the wrong track. Now, what can I do for you? Give me a half-hour interview. Out of the question. I told you I would not grant an interview having to do with this tragedy. I talked to your publicity director at Buckley House in New York. She says she hopes you'll cooperate. help sell books, you know. I'm normally a very patient person, and I understand the need of reporters to press as hard as they can to get a story. After all, that is their job, and I respect it. But there are times when the press has strained my patient nature, and this was developing into one of those times. I tried to divert her attention by saying, I understand a number of your media colleagues have arrived. Yes, it's a big human interest story, Mrs. Fletcher. I understand how you feel, but the public has an insatiable appetite for stories like this, especially when they involve a major holiday like Christmas. That may be, but were you in Salem today? Following up on some aspect of the murder? Was I in? How did you know I went to Salem? By asking a few simple questions around town. My network has sent up two investigative reporters to help me develop the story. Someone at the bus station said you bought a ticket to Salem. I must say I'm impressed, Miss Bernison. She laughed. We're pretty good at what we do. Isn't Salem where Mr. Brent's wife went the morning he was murdered? I'm even more impressed now. Another laugh, then in a more serious tone. Look, Mrs. Fletcher, I don't want to unduly interfere with your life, but we're going to do this story one way or the other, and it really would mean a great deal to have the famous Jessica Fletcher, the most illustrious citizen of Cabot Cove, get me an on-air interview. Please, won't you at least consider it? I'm always willing to consider almost anything, Miss Brennison. Call me Roberta. I'll think about it, Roberta. In the meantime, I'm busy this evening doing some paperwork. I'm sure I'll see you around town tomorrow. We can chat then. I didn't give her a chance to respond. Give her a chance to respond because I quickly added, Good night. Thank you for calling before hanging up. I received other calls that night before going to sleep, none of them having to do with the murder. Mostly they were from people wanting to discuss the upcoming festival. I enjoyed those conversations. They likely were less weighty than murder. But the final call of the evening, which came in just as I was preparing to go to bed, was from Joe Turkle. Hope I'm not calling too late, he said. Not at all. I'm happy to hear from you. Anything new? I say so. They're releasing Jake Welter. What? Why? How did that come about? I thought it seems there's some conflicting theories about that footprint found in Roy Brent's barn. The county police says it matches the sole on one of Jake's boots, but another scientist from the same lab claims they don't match. Anyway, while they're thrashing out conflicting theories, I put the arm on the district attorney. I've been with her all night. I told her that he absolutely has nothing to justify holding Jake in jail. As I told you, she's a pretty level-headed person. She finally agreed with me that there was enough evidence to indict, and so he's being let go. Should be on his way back to the barn farm by now. I have the same ambivalent set of feelings as when it was first anticipated that Jake would be allowed to go free. I was delighted for him and his family. On the other hand, I had that lingering question of what would happen if he had, in fact, killed Roy Brent. But I couldn't put that color my thinking. The man was innocent until proven guilty, and up until this point, no such proof existed. You did a marvelous job for someone who disliked his client so much, I said. His laugh was weary. Every lawyer I know has done work for clients they couldn't stomach, absolutely hated. Isn't important how a lawyer feels about a client. What is important is that the law be followed and justice be served. I'm just glad it worked out this way, at least for his wife and his daughter. I just learned about her. Jill, is it? Yes. She and I, well, Joe, it was good for you to call and give me the news. You sound like you can use some sleep. What I could use is a drink or some dinner, he said. What I intend to take care of right now. Good night, Jessica. Talk to you tomorrow. Before going to bed, I added a final item to my list. Drake Walter released. What next? Like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Bye.